Yes, I'm now delighted to introduce to you Florence Berteletti. She's the Secretary General of the European Alcohol Policy Alliance, Eurocare. Florence, you're one of the strongest health campaigner, I would want to say, in Brussels. We now have a new health commissioner, Oliver Verhalli. Do I say that well? And he had a hearing in the parliament for 3.5 hours. He mentioned alcohol maybe only once, twice. And we are also facing a very business-friendly political environment. So we look forward to hear your insights, how we're going to face that. Florence.
Thank you so much, Caroline, for this introduction. And also thank you to EuroHealthNet and Santé Publique France for this amazing meeting. The title of my presentation is Alcohol Labeling, Why Our Citizens Denied the Right to Know. But I suppose this, if I could have the next slide, please. Or do I need to do something?
You have the clicker here.
Ah, that's it. I'll just tell you in a nutshell what I'm going to be presenting today. So, what we've been, the topic is health farming industries or the commercial determinants of health. And in that topic, which is very large, we need to know why the health farming industries are bad. And by bad, I mean bad industries. Why do I mean bad industries? Because they block B, amend A, delay, so they're bad. That's why they block the amend delays policy at all levels, at regional level, national level, and at European level. So the why has been explained quite extensively now in the past 2 years. But I think who are these industries and to get to know them, and to get to know their intention and to get to know how they operate is the first part, and where they operate, because they operate differently, whether they operate in the Parliament, in the Commission, at the Council level, and they have different strategies. So I've been trying to dig into who they are and what they do and how they hide themselves. So this is basically what this presentation is about. And at the very end, I've just put, and so what? Meaning, what do we do about it? So alcohol lobbies at the EU level, and I have no problem saying know your enemy, because they are definitely our enemy. They are not our friends. They are part of the problem. They are, in fact, the problem, and they're definitely not part of the solution. So, alcohol lobbies at the EU level, a sort of broad overview to start up with. Who are they? I had 15 minutes, so I don't want to dig into it too much, but what I would say is we have 3 broad organizations at EU level. The first one is called le Comité Européen des Entreprises Vin, CEEV. The second one is Spirits Europe. So Diageo, for instance, is a member of Spirit Europe. And then you have the Brewers of Europe. And these 3 organizations are located here in Brussels. They are registered on the Transparency Registry. And we know that these 3 organizations have staff that operate everywhere. But they also made alliances. And these alliances here I've just highlighted 2. The first one is called U-Label, and specifically it's a partnership between CEEV and Spirit Europe in order to ensure that alcohol labeling never happens at EU level. And then there is another one which is called Wine in Moderation, which in fact also has an office in Brussels with 7 or 8 people as staff. So this is just, the kind of organizations, but within each of these organizations, let's take Spirits Europe, they have members at national level, and these members are also registered on the transparency registry. And these members, let's say Diageo or the Whisky Association or Moët & Chandon for Comité Européen des Vins, they also have lobbyists that come regularly to Brussels. So it's an enormous army of lobbyists who are coming to the three institutions lobbying to ensure that actually their product is not regulated at EU level. So I'm not going to just read what I've just said. It's all these lobbyists, and there are many, many hundreds, 20,000, I would say. They are involved in discussions on key topics, such as taxation, product regulation, and international trade agreements. But the one agreement that they've passed on together is absolutely no labeling at EU level, and that's their number one priority. We know that in the Beating Cancer Plan, that covers all the things, but everything was achieved within this big plan of the European Commission, except the legislative proposals. And guess what? These legislative proposals all relate to the risk factors that cause cancer and cardiovascular disease, diabetes, respiratory disease, and so on. So quite a few relate to tobacco control. 2 relate to alcohol. The first one is a proposal on alcohol labeling. The other one is a proposal on health warnings, but also on food. There was supposed to be a proposal on front-of-pack labeling, which was cancelled. And also the revision on EU school fruit, vegetable, and milk schemes. These are legislative proposals that have the power to legislate on all the 27 member states. So you can imagine the reason why the industry chooses to lobby and to absolutely put all their efforts at EU level. It's because basically there is almost impossible to do something at national level, or if there is the possibility, it's so much more harder. So they have a concentration, and what they've managed to do during the previous mandate is to cancel all these proposals who are still stuck within the European Commission, and this is not acceptable. We should not accept it as a public health community, and we should be united in saying that it is unacceptable. Now, I'm going into the Parliament more specifically. So what is the industry doing? And here it's the alcohol industry, but you will see that they have allies and they work with the other industries. What do they do in the European Parliament? So this is a nice picture. This is the kind of things that they would do, even though there's no branding. I made sure that there is no branding here, so no one can accuse me of putting a picture that is problematic. But here are 3, in blue are 3 what is called intergroup, and the ones who are in kind of lighter color are interest group. So the wine, spirits, and quality food stuff, intergroup, we don't know if they've won this time, it's from the previous mandate, unites or used to unite about 80, 90, 100 MEPs, and it's a coalition between wine, spirit, and quality foodstuff. And it cuts across all the communities in the Parliament, and these MEPs make sure that actually legislation on products related to wine, spirits, or quality foodstuff don't get passed. When I say that they are bad, they block, amend, delay. That's their tactics. That's what they do, and they do that by amending. Blocking was in the Commission, amending is here. There is another intergroup which is called SMEs, Small Medium Enterprise, and of course they're everywhere in that intergroup because they represent the interests of the small and medium enterprise. A small and medium enterprise is 100 staff. That's small. So when we think small, medium enterprise, it's not 5 people. It's actually 100 or 200 staff. It still represents the interest of the small, medium enterprises. And the alcohol industry, the food industry representing big corporations are in that intergroup. Another intergroup where they are very, very active in is the climate change, biodiversity, and sustainable development. And whilst we may not think that they are involved in this discussion, of course they're greening themselves by saying that their product, they're trying to reduce their impact on the environment. And so they make friends with MEPs, but then they also make sure that the legislative proposal that I've presented earlier don't get through. And then, of course, you've got the beer club with, MEPs who like to drink beer, the wine club, or le Club du Vin, with MEPs who like to drink wine, and the whiskey club and Friends of Spirits, which also is an interest group with MEPs who like to drink spirits. And so that's a hell of a lot of MEPs altogether. And in fact, between all these groups, you can be sure that the health farming industries are in all of them, and they cover the entire parliament. And so this is also another, it says it all in an image, but that's basically what they do in the parliament. And one of the things that definitely they do not want is to avoid mandatory alcohol labeling at the EU level, because that would be the beginning of the regulation of their product. Last but not least, it's how the alcohol industry is in the European Commission. And again, this image says it all. But what I'm going to tell you, some of you may know, some of you may not know. We have a tendency, in those of us working in alcohol, to look at the demand side, but we don't look at the supply side. And the supply side is extremely important. Every year, between 1.4 and 1.9 billion euros are invested in the production and the promotion of wine and other food stuff in Europe. And it's EU tax money that is going to ensuring that the production continues and increase. And they found out that the production of wine had decreased. And so there was a big discussion in DG Agri, in the committee in the parliament, but a research that had been conducted by DG Agri. And what they've decided to do to increase this production and to increase the promotion and to increase the consumption, they make no, they're not shy at saying we need to absolutely increase the consumption of wine because it has decreased, particularly amongst young people. I mean, word for word, because it's elegant to drink wine, and they are worried that young people drink less wine. So they've convened all the agri ministers in this high-level group for EU1 sector, which was launched 2 or 3 months ago. And of course, they invited the stakeholders, but by the stakeholders, it's the big corporations and it's the wine producers, but we are health stakeholders, and we are therefore a stakeholder, and we have officially requested to be on this high-level group for EU1 sector, and we are waiting for, hopefully, a positive answer. So this is the actual figure. When I said between 1.4 and 1.9 billion, it's approximately let's say, even if it's 1 billion, it's still quite a lot that I wish we had in public health. So I think I've covered my 15 minutes. It sounds daunting, but I think there is a lot that we can do. We did it in tobacco control. We've done a lot of progress. We can do similar progress in alcohol policies. We need to focus on speaking with one voice. As Catherine said, it's extremely important. We need to make sure that we prioritize the policy that we work on, whilst remembering all the time that we need comprehensive strategies. And we also need to know where they don't want to be legislated. And if we need to start somewhere, then I think labeling is where we want to be. And I'd like to finish with this quote by the Belgian Health Minister, Fran van der Broeke, which says it all. Prevention is very much about consumption. Consumption is about what is on the market. When you say market, you say EU. So the role of the EU in creating an environment, a market that promotes a healthy lifestyle is key. Tobacco and alcohol are an internal market competence. Clear action on tobacco and alcohol was promised in the Europeans Beating Cancer Plan in 2021. Let's make sure that it's still a priority for this mandate. Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Florence. Now you can stay a little bit to see whether someone has questions for clarification. Also, for our participants online, please don't hesitate to ask any questions through the Q&A. Yes, I see. Yes.
Now?
Yes.
Hi, Sarah Bitbol from UFA. Thank you, Florence, for this great presentation. I can only agree with everything you said. There was a question that I wanted to ask to the previous panel, but I thought would be more appropriate. So we talked about youth, and we mentioned that young people today are more sensitive to everything around them, smoking, drinking. How can we influence them? And what I really appreciated in your presentation is that you mentioned climate change and that we don't often link the alcohol lobby with climate change. I'm a lobbyist in public health, and I'm a strong advocate for the One Health approach. And my question is, how can we do this link and communicate better to the youth about this link between alcohol and climate change? Because we know that the young people are extremely sensitive to climate change and anything that is detrimental to the climate.
Much for this question. There's many ways I could respond, but the one thing is linked to actually the production that I mentioned of alcohol. It covers a lot of land. It uses a lot of water, and actually alcohol is not a commodity that we need. And at the time of climate change, we need to say that we are not against farmers, but perhaps those lands could be used for other things. We need to take the farmers on our side. We need to make sure that we use our land in a way that is contributing to food security and not to the deprivation of using of this land, which is to produce a product that is not an essential commodity for people. And we should make progress, making friends with farmers so that they move away from planting vines and planting, things that create beer or whatever, so that they produce the food that the people need on the ground. Also, the amount of water that is needed is absolutely atrocious. And there was a little gimmick that was developed by a climate change in the UK, I can't remember which one it was, which looks at the level of water, and it has an impact. Wine, alcohol, beer production is actually detrimental for for climate change. So we need to make these arguments and make the link.
And as you're saying, having more of a comprehensive strategy and addressing the lobbyists, and I think climate change is very much part of that. Are there any further questions? Maybe one question to you, Florence, and thanks for setting out so clearly all the various stakeholders' opportunities in the Parliament and in the Commission for the industry to engage with policymakers. If you compare the number of lobbyists from the alcohol industry, I don't know whether you have a number, with the number of public health advocates like Eurocare and yourself, could you say something about that to demonstrate the difference?
We know clearly the amount, because a research was conducted on the lobbying at EU level by the tobacco industry. I think it's 33 or 40, between 33 or 40 million on lobbyists at EU level. I've just made a quick research of, I think it took me 2 hours, just the 3 organizations that I mentioned, just their staff is 9 million. 9 million by these 3 industries, which is just one industry, 9 million. And on the other hand, 9 million is a budget that is helping NGOs, but all the NGOs on all the risk factors, and also on disease prevention for NGOs at EU level. The NGOs at EU level, those of us who are, I love what you said, Sarah. We are public health lobbyists. Is minute. In my team, we are 4, and of course we have a network. But if the tobacco industry is between 33 million and 40, you could definitely say, but we need the research, that you multiply that by 5, plus all the the public affairs agencies, the lawyers that they employ. It's gigantic. And the other thing that I want to say is linked to the quote of Minister Van den Broeke. Brussels is a lobbying hub. It's the most important lobbying hub in the world with Washington. Why? Because that's where you can legislate, and it has such an impact. They know that, and sometimes we forget that the lobbying is really concentrated here, because if they block or amend and delay, they've won in so many countries. So,
yeah. Thanks for that. And I also like what the quote of Van den Broeke, that he's referring to the EU internal market, an internal market that allows business to go freely and settle themselves everywhere and do their businesses. And I think we need to, as public health activists, lobbyists, we need to see what we can do with the EU internal market. The changes are possible on health grounds, and for that we need public health lawyers. But maybe that's something to discuss further for the round table. So thanks a lot, Florence.
Thank you.